Hello beautiful people, I'm Uncle Fidget, and on occasion, I make Pokemon playthroughs. I figured some of you out there may be looking to start your own playthrough at some point, so for the next couple of weeks I figured I'd take you step by step through my process of creating a series, from start to upload. And the place I always begin is with a layout, so today I'll be taking you through how to make one just like this. I'll be using Photoshop today to make my layout, but free alternatives like GIMP have many of the same features I'm going to be using. First thing we're going to want to do is open up a new file, and we're going to want our canvas to be 1920 by 1080 to match our video's resolution. Once that's done, ensure to unlock your background layer. We'll be using this layer. Now to choose a color for my background, I often use the logo for the game I'm playing through as a reference, so let's go bring that in now. As you can see, Pokemon Sword has a nice cyan color, so if I double click on the background layer, we can pull up the blending options. We're going to turn on Gradient Overlay to give us a nice transition of colors from top to bottom. Now before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and pick a color for our gradient to transition to. As we're working with a cyan in the logo, I think a nice orange should balance it out. I know these two are going to look good together because they're complementary colors to one another. With our color decided upon, we can go ahead and choose what kind of gradient we want. There's a few different styles to choose from. Personally, I'm a fan of the angle style for this particular layout. If for whatever reason you're not happy with the order your gradient's going in, you can hit the reverse button to swap the colors around. Once we've settled on angle, we can go ahead and spin this dial here to change up exactly where that harsh transition of color is going to be, and personally I like it in the bottom left hand corner. Next, we're going to need somewhere to indicate where our gameplay footage is going to go. For this, open up a new file, once again set it in 1920 by 1080, unlock the background, and just go ahead and fill the whole thing in black. Now you can click and drag the layer onto the other file and drop it. Now by pressing Ctrl T, we can change the size of it to something that looks appropriate. My other job here is to decide how much of an effective border I want. I like to have even spacing all around my layout, so we're going to try and drag this layer 20 pixels in from the left and 20 pixels down from the top. Now to add another indicator as to where our webcam is going to go. As most webcams film in 16 by 9, we could simply drag the same layer across again, but I think it looks a little small and lost up there. So instead this time, we're going to go for a square box. We're going to do the same thing again, open up a new file, but this time it'll be 500 by 500 pixels. Unlock the background, fill it in black, drag the layer over onto our main project, line it up with the top of our gameplay screen, and drag it 20 pixels across from it. Now all we have to do is resize it until we can see that it's also 20 pixels across from the other side of the layout. All I'm simply doing here is resizing it, dragging it across, seeing how far it's now away from the outside of the layer, using Ctrl Z to reset my positioning, and resizing again. This can get a bit fiddly, so sometimes it's worth zooming in. Now that we have our gameplay and webcam placement sorted, we need somewhere to show our current party members. This can often be done with boxes, but I personally like using Pokeballs, so I'm going to go drag in an asset I downloaded earlier, resize it, and put it in this corner. Once I'm happy with the size, I can go ahead and hit Ctrl C and Ctrl V to duplicate the layer. Note, you may have to hide your gameplay layer in order to find it. Once I bring it down, you can see that it's brought up indicator lines. This shows me that it's perfectly in line with my other Pokeball, and I can go ahead and drop it. I hit Ctrl V to bring up another one, and when I drag this one down, I not only get an indicator line to show that they're in line with one another, but also that it's the same distance from this Pokeball as the next one. I'll then repeat this step until I have a total of 6 Pokeballs. If I go ahead and bring in the gameplay layer again, we can see that it looks a little bit off center. So from here, I can drag out one of the Pokeballs and then readjust them, using my indicator lines to ensure that I keep equal distance between them all the way across. Once I'm happy with how wide they are apart, I can go ahead and center these up to the frame of my gameplay. To ensure I move all the Pokeballs at once, I'll go ahead and merge the layers by highlighting all the layers I want and right-clicking. The next progress tracker I like to keep on my layouts is how many badges I've got so far. So I once again go ahead and drag in the asset that I've downloaded and resize it to fit where I want it. It's important that when you're downloading assets for your playthrough, that you ensure that the files are PNG format. This means that they'll have a transparent background instead of a white one. I'm now happy with their size and placement, but it currently looks like I have all the badges. So we're going to double click on the layer to open up the blending options and add a color overlay. Okay, they're now whited out so it no longer looks like we have the badges, but I like to make them look like they're recessed into the layout themselves. For this, I'll go ahead and turn on an inner shadow. There, now it looks like there's spaces within the layout where a badge could go. Now we go ahead and bring our logo back in and put it in the spacing we've left. I'm not fond of how the sword logo is overlapping one of my Pokeballs, so I'll go ahead and move it down a few layers until it's behind those. Let's readjust the placement of my badges so that they look more evenly spaced. And now just to make everything pop, we'll double click on the Pokeball layers to bring up our blending options and add an outer glow. That just makes them stand out from the background a little bit more. We can do the same now with our logo. I'm not fond of the thick white outline look like we have with the Pokeballs, so we can go ahead and change some of the settings here to get more of a faded glow effect. The glow is now sitting on top of our gameplay layer, so let's go ahead and drop that down a few layers again. There, now it's behind it. Whilst we're here, let's change the badge cutouts to a nice cyan to match the logo. There, that just ties everything together a bit more nicely. You could stop here, but if you want a border around your gameplay and webcam, this is how you do it. Double click on the layers and turn on stroke. If we open up the stroke settings, we can see that we can also use a gradient here or have it as a block color. We can change the size of the stroke that we want and effectively the size of our border. You can also change it from an inside stroke to an outside stroke. But I find using outside not only curves off the edges, but ruins all those measurements we worked so hard on. So I choose to use an inside stroke. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and change it to a gradient and use that same angle style we used on the background. Set the color to match that of the logo and complement that of the background, and move the dial so that harsh transition sits in the top right hand corner instead of the bottom left this time. With that done, I can copy the layer style by right clicking and pasting it onto the webcam layout. Spin the dial so I'm happy with the angle, and that's done. And that's how I make my layouts. I look forward to seeing the ones you can come up with and hope that your playthrough journey is an enjoyable one. Next week I'll be showing you how to take this layout into OBS, add your webcam and gameplay footage to it, and start your recordings. Until then, I'll catch you later. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, ring the bell, do all the YouTube things, and I shall see you on the next episode.